Okay, everybody, in this lesson, we're going to talk about lookups. Now, lookups are one of the key features that people look for when they're looking for people with Excel skills. They're really important. They help us really get into our data and do some more analysis on it. So let's get right into it. We should be over on our lookups tab in our workbook. And the first thing we're going to do is go over to the raw data tab. So click off the lookups tab and look on the raw data tab. Now what we have here is we have a big table of company data. We've got company, a mailing address, a city, a state, a zip code, and number of employees. And if I scroll down and I go all the way to the bottom, I've got like 1,400 rows of company data. But I want to be able to access those individual rows to do other things with them. And that's where lookups come into play. Now what we're going to do, let's go back to the lookups tab. In this lesson, we're going to be mostly talking about XLookup. Now XLookup is a fairly new way to look up, but it is probably the best and the thing you should use going forward. Now prior to XLookup, you had something called VLOOKUP and you also had index match. And those were the two lookups that most people used. VLOOKUP is very similar to XLookup, so we're going to cover that in this module, and then there's going to be an optional module on index match. One thing I will say is that going forward, you should really focus on XLookup when you're doing lookups, but I still want you to be familiar with VLOOKUP and index match because you're going to continue to see those lookups in workbooks for quite some time. Not everybody's on Microsoft 365, and some people just have old habits and they don't know about XLookup yet. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And for this first block here, what we've done is we have a drop-down list with all the company names here, and we're going to cover making the drop-downs in another lesson. But for now, you can just see you can click on a drop-down, and the information, the street address, the state, and the number of employees will change or get looked up as you change that company. Okay, so that's what we're going to learn how to build is these lookups to get the street address, the state, and the number of employees. So first thing I need to do is just delete those out of there. Let's go ahead and start with the function builder and look up XLookup because it'll be easy the first time and then we'll type it in. So what XLookup wants us to do is first input a lookup value. And what that is that's the value you want to look up in a certain range of cells somewhere. So what that's going to be is our company. So I can just click on that cell and it'll put in the company that's selected there. And now, what's the lookup array? I don't know if we've talked about arrays too much, but an array is simply just a group of cells, okay? And it can be just a column of cells or it can be multiple columns of cells. For XLookup, when you have a lookup value, you're going to have a lookup array basically be one column of data. So when we're on here, let's go back over and click on the raw data, and we want to look up in the company name. Now, I'm going to show you another trick. We could go here and select all the way down to row 1400 or use our keyboard shortcuts. But if this is the only thing on this worksheet, I can just click column A and that will be our lookup array. And then I need the return array. Okay, well for this one, this was street address. So the return array is going to be, I'll have to click on raw data again, the mailing address. So I'll click on column B. You see in the function builder, it tells you it found an address, so that's good. And we're going to talk about if not found in match mode in a few minutes, but for now, let's just leave that like that. And now the other two, I'm going to type this one in, equals XLookup. I want the lookup value to be the company, and then what I want to look up is the city, so I'll click on column C. And then hit enter. And that was Concord. Okay, and now the number of employees. So this time, I'm going to just type it in again. Look up value, look up array, and number of employees. Pretty simple. All right, well let's move down and let's do the first derivation here. So that lookup was based on just finding the exact match. Now the other thing lookups can do is they can find an approximate match. Okay, so say you're a teacher and you want to put test scores in, and you've got a little chart here that says everybody above a 90 is an A, Everybody above an 80 is a B, everybody above a 70 is a C, 60 is a D, and then 0, everybody from 0 to 60 is an F. So we can do that here. If I put a test score in here, it can use XLookup to go find the right letter grade by doing an estimation. So let's go see how that works. I'll click on my function wizard again, XLookup. And my lookup value this time is going to be this test score. My lookup array is going to be these numbers here. And then my return array are these. So now we're going to skip if not found, but now we're looking at match mode, okay? So the match mode is it going to match exactly, or is it going to look for one higher than the value it is or one lower? So let's put in a 0 there and hit enter, because 0 is the exact match. And it didn't find anything because there's no 91. So let's go in here and just look at our function now. And if I put a comma there, it tells me what they are. 0 is an exact match. -1 is an exact match to the next smaller item. 1 is the next larger item. And 2 is a wildcard match, which we're not going to really get into in this lesson. So let's try -1. Exact match or next smaller item. So let's go to exact match or next smaller item. And hit enter. Now we got an A. What if it's a 90? That's still an A. What about an 88? B. 86. So that's really neat. It can kind of do an estimate. Now the other thing you have to realize is when you do a partial match with XLookup, they have to be in the right order. Okay, so let's scroll down a little bit more. Now one other thing that's kind of neat with XLookup is it can actually look up multiple things at the same time with you only putting the formula in once. And this is why this is better than VLOOKUP and index match. So I've got 3 companies here. Let's go ahead and just wipe these out because we're going to do it again. And I'm going to type in equals XLookup. And for my lookup value, this time I'm just going to highlight those 3. That's a lookup array. I'm looking up 3 things. Now, what's my actual lookup array where I'm going to look them up? I'll go back here to raw data and pick company. And then my return array is number of employees. And I'll just hit enter. And if you notice, I only put that formula in the top cell of that little range there. But what it did is it spilled the results down. And if you notice, when I'm on this cell, the formula is bold, so it shows you it's actually put in there. When I click on the other cells, it's kind of grayed out a little bit. So that kind of tells you this was a spillover formula. But that's pretty powerful too. So I didn't have to copy it all the way down or go to the end. As long as I've got all the ones I wanted to look up, XLookup will spill the results down for you. So let's go down and talk about VLOOKUP. The exercise we're going to do are very similar. Just going to show you how to do it in VLOOKUP instead of XLookup. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wipe out the street address, and we'll just do VLOOKUP. Get our function out here. And very similar to XLookup. We've got a lookup value, which is going to be the company name. Now we have our table array. This is where it's different. With XLookup, we could select the column we're looking up and the column we're returning. With VLOOKUP, you have to select the entire table that you're going to look up. So I'll come over here to raw data and I'll go A through G. So another thing about VLOOKUP that's different is it doesn't show a place where we're doing the lookup range. That's because VLOOKUP, you always have to be looking up the column that's on the very left of your table. So for this one, we're only going to be able to look up things by company name. That's column A, that's the leftmost column in our table that we picked up. So that's one of the reasons that people don't like VLOOKUP, is because index match, you could look up any column, and XLookup, you can do that too. But that's one of the big differences. So the next thing we're going to do is, instead of clicking on the column that you want to return when you find the company, you have to put the column index number. And what I've done on this table is I listed those for you. If I want to return the mailing address, that would be column 2. If I want to return the state, that's column 4. And if I want to return the number of employees, that's number 6. Well, we're going to start off and just do the mailing address. So we'll put 2 there. And then this range lookup, this is important, okay? You always need to make this say false. And this is kind of something I don't like about VLOOKUP. False is what makes VLOOKUP look up an exact value. If you make it true or don't put anything there, then it's going to be that kind of fuzzy match like we did with XLookup. So you always want to put false here. That's going to make it do an exact match. If you want to find an exact match, make it equal to false. So we'll click OK there. And so it kind of does the same thing. Again, it's very similar to XLookup. And now we'll go down and do the last thing with VLOOKUP is the range match like we did with XLookup. Same thing with the teacher's grades. Now this time, I've got them ordered differently. I've got them ordered from lowest to highest. And we're going to see how VLOOKUP will find the closest match. But it has to be ordered lowest to highest. You can't have it ordered in a different way. So here, same sort of thing. We're going to do equals VLOOKUP. And we want our lookup value, which is our test score. And then our table array, which is this. And then column index number, that's going to be 1, 2 to return the grade. And then the range lookup. Do I want the exact match, which is false, or do we want it to be approximate? That's true. We want the approximate. So click that and then hit enter. And now same sort of thing. 75 is going to give us a C because that's on this one with VLOOKUP, it's what's a little greater than 70, but not as big as 80. So if I get up to 80, and if I get to 85, if I get to 91, it's, oops. If I get to 91, it's an A. So there you have it. 2 lookup functions for you to use. XLookup absolutely is the one you should focus on and use that as going forward. But if you see VLOOKUP, don't be scared. It's not too much more difficult. And then there will be another module for index match, and that's kind of optional. If you want to do that, you can. If not, you can skip over that one. And that's it. Let's get ready for the next lesson.